So yesterday we learned the complete the square method, and you can use complete the square method to solve for x. But you can also use complete the square method to take an equation and rewrite it from standard form, y equals x squared minus 12x plus 18. You can rewrite it into vertex form, which we did a bunch before. Here's vertex form up here in the paragraph. Remember, y equals a parenthesis x minus h close parenthesis squared plus k. And then you can find your vertex hk from that. So we're going to use this equation and we're going to write it in vertex form using our complete the square method. The only thing different about this equation and the ones that you did for your assignment yesterday and the notes yesterday is yesterday we didn't have a y. What did we have over here instead of a y? We had a 0. You're going to do the exact same way, only now we have a y, so I'm going to leave it as y. So the first thing that we did yesterday was what? Subtract the constants. Yes, so I'm going to still do that. I'm going to move the 18 over and make it a negative 18. So I have y minus 18 equals x squared. Actually, I need to leave a space. Minus 18 space equals x squared minus 12x. What goes in this space? The square. So once you have written that square, then we get to complete the square. How do we complete the square? B divided by 2 squared. You take B, divide it by 2, and then you square it. So here we're going to do negative 12 divided by 2, which is negative 6 squared, which is 36. Every time you square a number, it becomes positive. Then on the side with this y minus 18 plus 36, I'm just going to combine the minus 18 and the positive 36 and get plus 18. What am I going to do on the other side? Zeta, what am I going to do on the other side? What did we do with the trinomial yesterday? Do we want to help her? Carly? You do totally factor it. Yeah, you factor it. And how are we going to write it? Something that is, I'm writing it backwards so you can see the correct number. I think I'm writing it backwards. Squared. You're going to have like parentheses, something squared. What's going to be the first place? X. And it's going to be a minus sign. What number goes there? 6, right? That's what we were doing yesterday. So you just factor it. Huh? Now, since we're not solving right now, we're just rewriting it in vertex form. All I have to do is move this positive 18 to the other side by subtracting it. It does not go into the parenthesis. So y equals parenthesis x minus 6 squared minus 18. That's vertex form. So if we were graphing this, where would we put our vertex? At what 6? Positive or negative? Positive 6, negative 18. That's where our vertex would be. Remember the h and the k? And if we were graphing this, would it have a stretch or a shrink? No? Would it have a reflection? No? So just be the parent function over 6 down 18. Let's try that again. Number 13. First step, you got to move the constant over. So first step, we're going to have y subtract 18 equal minus 18 space equals x squared minus 8x. We put a square in the space. Then we complete the square. B over 2 squared. We'll do negative 8 over 2 squared. Negative 4 squared is 16. If you had 16 on one side, you got to do to both sides. We'll simplify y minus 2 equals, and what, Zena, should we do on the other side? Factor it, right. We're going to write something as a quantity, parenthesis, what? There you go. Something squared, 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 squared. There you go. So this one's going to be x, and then what? Minus 4. And just a reminder where I'm getting that minus 4 from, it's the number I had before I squared it to find the square, complete the square number. And then we're writing in vertex form, so now I'm just going to move the 2 back over to the other side. Y equals, parenthesis, x minus 4 squared plus 2. So where would our vertex be if we were graphing it? Positive 4, positive 2. Now on your paper, there's 2 more examples. I want you to pick your favorite, but if you're sitting next to somebody, you can't pick the same one. And I'm going to come around with my sparkly pen and check you off if you get it. If you want to do both and you have extra time, feel free. So example 4 now says solving ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0 when a does not equal 1. So what's different about these is we're going to start with a number in front. So I'm going to write steps, and it's going to take up way too much space that you don't have there. Just heads up, write small. I apologize. If you want extra paper, just do it on paper. That's fine too. But I didn't leave enough space, so sorry. But I'm going to write steps for the first one. The first step for this kind is the exact same as the first step for before. We're going to move that constant. Move the constant to the other side. Move the constant. So what am I going to do to both sides? Subtract 15. So now I have 3x squared plus 12x plus square equals negative 15 plus square. But this kind's different. So from there, there's something different to do. You can only do the complete the square if the number in front is a 1, which this is not. So we can't do complete the square quite yet. So we're going to do something else in the meantime. Until we make this number 1, we're going to do something else. So step 2. We're going to factor out and I'm calling it leading coefficient, which is like factoring out the GCF. It's just not always going to have something in common with the other things. It's nice when it does, but it doesn't always. So I'm going to be factoring out the leading coefficient, the first coefficient, which is a 3. I'm going to factor that out just on this side of the equation. See how I factored that 3 out? It's going to go in front. And we'll have inside the parenthesis now an x squared. We'll have a plus 4x. But where my square was, I don't know what number that should be to divide by 3. All I know is it's not going to be the same number. So I'm not going to make it a square. I'm just going to make it into a fluffy cloud. I just chose a different shape that's not a square. If you can't handle putting a fluffy cloud, you make up your own shape, that's fine. On the other side, it's still negative 15 plus square, because I didn't change the other side. So now I'm going to do the complete the square step where we do the b divided by 2, square it, but I'm using the new b, not the old b. I'm using the new b. So my step 3 is that b over 2 squared. So we're going to do 4 over 2 squared, 2 squared, 4. So 4 is fluffy cloud. It is not square. 4 is fluffy cloud. It is not square. Because when you look at what I actually added to the left side, there's a 3 in front of that parenthesis. So when I look at what I actually added to that whole side of the equation, I added a 3 multiplied by a 4, which is what number? 3 times 4? 12. So that's what I actually added to the left side of the equation. So the reason why I made them 2 different symbols, so you can remember these should be different numbers. That's why I did fluffy cloud and square. Well, I made it a fluffy cloud because that sounds fun, but you could circle it or something. Okay, next is factor the perfect square trinomial. You're going to get something squared. That 3 that came out before is still out front. So I'm going to factor the x squared plus 4x plus 4, and I'm going to get what? Second, do you know what I'm going to get when I factor this? What's it going to start with?
X.
X. What sign?
Plus.
Uh-huh.
2.
2. Yep. All right. Then what we're going to do next is we're going to solve this by using square roots, but we can't have that number out front. So my next step, if I want to write it down, would be divide both sides by the leading coefficient, that 3. Divide both sides by that leading coefficient, which is that 3 that we had out there before. So when I divide by 3, it cancels out on that side. When I divide by 3 on the other side, I get -1. So I'll have x plus 2 squared equals -1. And then finally, we solve by square rooting both sides. Solve by square roots. So if I square root both sides, what else do I need to put in? A plus minus, you got to have 2 answers. So we'll have x plus 2 equals plus minus square root -1. When we look at that square root and we ask if it's a perfect square or if it can be broken down further, is -1 a perfect square? What's special about square root of -1? It's I. So we are going to change that into I. So we'll have x. I haven't moved the 2 over. You could certainly save some room and like combine steps, but I'm trying to show you all the steps up here. So we change that into I. And then from there, move over your 2 by subtracting it. And remember, we put it in front, so I'll have x equals -2 plus or minus I. And remember, when you do it on the computer, you're going to have to write them separately. So when you do it on the computer, what's one of my answers I type in? -2 plus plus I, and what would be the other? Negative 2 minus I. So you just type those in. Okay? All right, the next one that let's go through is number 9. Number 9?
I'll tell you this, like, we gave a 3-2 way to
Before you take it away? Yes, but sometimes it's not divisible by 3. And actually, no, don't ever do that. I lied. Don't do that because it's just going to make it way messy. Because what you want is you want 2 terms, so you can put in that square. So you want to just get rid of that right away. Get rid of it right away so that you can put in whatever number you want. Okay? It will make it way more messy to not get rid of it first. So what is our first step, Jacob? Get rid of that constant, move it over. So we're going to have negative 3x squared minus 18x, leave a space for that square, equals positive 6 plus square. And then we can't complete the square if there's a number other than 1 in front of x squared, which there is. So I got to get rid of that next. So we got to divide out that negative 3, factor it out, put it in front. So I get x squared plus 6x, but then I don't have square anymore. I have fluffy cloud. Then I'm going to complete my square by taking b divided by 2, squaring it. So I'm going to do 6 divided by 2 squared. So 3 squared is 9. Am I going to put 9 in the square? Same as fluffy cloud? Are they the same shape? So what am I going to put in square? Negative 3 times 9, which is negative 27. And make sure that when you have fluffy cloud, it's a different number than square. Or different numbers. Then we can factor, we get negative 3, and we're going to factor this to x plus 3 squared. Other side, add that together, we get negative 21. And what should we do next? Read, you know? Excellent. Good vocabulary. Divide that leading coefficient, negative 3. So they'll cancel out there. So we have x plus 3 squared equals 7. The other part, right? Yeah. Okay. Shay, you know what I do next? Square root both sides? Yeah. Square root. And when you do the square root, what else do you have to do? Plus minus. Square root both sides. That's going to give me x plus 3 equals plus minus square root 7. Then you say, is the square root of 7 the perfect square? Can square root of 7 like have a perfect square that factors out of it? No, so I can't do anything with square root 7. Just going to move the 3 over. X equals negative 3 plus or minus square root 7. That would be my 2 solutions. And remember, you write them separately on the computer. One last example. We can do it. One last, and we can start our assignment. Ready? The one I'm going to do is number 12. Nope, I lied. 11. So 11 is it. 11. So there was 2 like this in the assignment yesterday, which nobody asked me about. So I guess you all understand what to do. But calling anybody right now, they can tell me what to do, right? Except for Brooke. Well, what do you think I should do? What do you think, Allie? Yeah, get rid of those parentheses, just distribute, and then it'll look like what we were doing before. So 6x squared plus 12x. And the constant's already on the other side, so we're going to go ahead and put that plus square in there. Plus square. Can I use complete the square now? Why not, Brianna? Leading coefficient, the first coefficient, the leading one. So I got to factor out that 6. So I'm going to put that in front. I'm going to have x squared plus 2x. Do I still put square there? Or is it a different number now? Different number, fluffy cloud, right? You don't have to use a fluffy cloud if you don't want to, but equals negative 42 plus square. So then I'm going to complete my square. I'm going to do 2 divided by 2 squared. 1 squared is 1. Do I put the same number in fluffy cloud as square? Nah, they're different. So what do I have to do? Distribute 6 to the 1. Put that answer in the square, 6. So we're going to factor it. And I get 6 parentheses x plus 1 squared equals negative 36. Tim, what should I do? Divide it. Get rid of it. It can't be on this side when we go to solve, so we're going to get rid of that 6 by dividing it, both sides. X plus 1 squared equals negative 6. David, what should I do?
Square root is that. What's that?
What do I do if I square it?
Plus minus.
Plus minus? Okay. So now I have x plus 1 equals plus minus square root negative 6. Can we square root negative 6? Can we break it down? Can I? You're right. How? Ellie, how can I break it down?
I and the square root of 6.
Square
root of negative 1.
Yeah, square root of 6 and square root of negative 1, and that negative 1 becomes the I. Square root of 6 does not have a square root. Nothing comes out of it, so I leave it as a radical. So when I go to write this right side, you're going to have to write it as plus minus, and you're going to, it's messy. You have to write it as plus minus. You have to write the I in front of the radical. You always put the I out like in front of it. You don't put it after it. And then you'll have to subtract your 1 to get that to the other side also. Negative 1 plus or minus I radical 6. Okay? So, you got to figure out if you got questions while you're practicing it. You have, you might need some scrap paper if you've already used up the back of those notes from yesterday. But come grab your computer. Start the assignment. You have like 15 minutes to work on it. Ask questions. This is definitely not an assignment to be skipping, because you aren't going to remember how to do it if you don't do it.